All right, welcome back. I hope you all had a great spring break. Feel free to email me. Let me know how your break was. I hope it was great. It always goes by too quick, even when we are stuck in quarantine doing the same thing over and over again. So real quick, before I get into some of your studies for this week, I wanted to go over what you'll see in the announcement tab of the Google Classroom. So for this week, the first thing that I need to make sure you all go back and do is please check PowerSchool to make sure your assignments are all finished. If you have not turned in an assignment, it will be marked as missing. It's not going to be a 0. It'll be marked as missing. You need to turn those in ASAP. You need to make sure that you're doing all of your work so that when the end of the year comes, you are passing social studies. That's really what we're aiming for, is that you pass my class and all of your classes. The assignments that you're going to need to have done by the end of this week. And by the end of the week, I mean Sunday, April 26th at 11:59 p.m. We are going to be learning about 2 different religions, Hinduism and Buddhism. For each religion, there's a slideshow, a video, and a chart to fill out using the slideshow. There's also a quizzes for each of them. Those will be linked in the Google Classroom, linked in the slideshow. You're going to need to complete those, plus a Venn diagram drag and drop. Again, you'll have the entire week to do this, and I will be available with any questions. I am also going to be starting this week. I will have new Zoom times, really that just work best for my family, and that'll be on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 1:30 to 2. And then if you need to meet with me Tuesday or Thursday, that'll just be by appointment. Of course, I'm available by appointment on the other days as well. Just shoot me an email. The Zooms are not for a grade. They're really just for any questions that you might have on assignments. So let's get into our first religion for the week, and that is Hinduism. So what you're going to want to do, either right now you could do this, or you could watch this video first and then go back and do the work. But this is the slideshow for Hinduism. You're going to want to have this chart pulled up, which is also linked in the Google Classroom, as you go through the slideshow. So I want you really to think about filling out this chart just like you would if I was in front of you teaching the lesson for today. So if you think back, well before break, we talked about our monotheistic religions. I want you to think to yourself, what does monotheism mean? It means the belief in just one God. So we are rounding up our religious studies with the final 2 major world religions. Of course, there are many other religions. These are just, we've talked about the 5 big ones this year. So we talked about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam before this. Now this week, you'll be learning about Hinduism and Buddhism. So the first religion we'll be talking about is Hinduism. We'll talk about Hinduism out of those 2 first because it was the oldest. And we're talking about these 2 because before break, we've been learning about ancient India. So you're going to see that both of these religions started in ancient times in what is now India. So the symbol often associated with Hinduism is a Sanskrit symbol that you'll see on your screen. And this symbol actually stands for a sound. A lot of people use this sound when meditating, and that is the sound. So feel free to do that. We would have done that together as a class if we were in class right now. So the founder of the Hindu faith, really a lot of sources say that it's unknown, but we're going to go ahead and say that it was brought to India probably by the Aryans that you learned about the week before spring break. So the Aryans lived up in Central Asia, and they migrated into the Indian subcontinent, and they brought with them their written language, which was Sanskrit. They also brought forth some religious ideas, which eventually turned into Hinduism. So at this point, you would want to go to this chart, and for founder, you would fill in the Aryans. Okay, back to my presentation. So Hinduism started more than likely by beliefs that were brought from the Aryans. If you were a follower of Hinduism, you would be called a Hindu. And again, at this point, I'm not going to stop and go back to that chart, but you could pause it, or you could, like I said, listen to this and then go back and work your way through the slideshow at your own pace. The Hindu faith started in the Indian subcontinent. The Indian subcontinent, in this case, we're going to include India and the countries of Pakistan. Hinduism is practiced all over the world, but where you're going to see the largest percentage of Hindu population is really still in India. And if you look at your key here, you're going to see well over 80% of India is Hindu, but you'll also see around the world more people that practice that religion. So we've talked about diffusion throughout the year, right? Diffusion is those spread of ideas. So when the Aryans came in, they had a religion called Brahmanism, and that blended with local beliefs. It really changed over time to become what we know today as Hinduism. The place of worship for a Hindu would be at a mandir, otherwise known as a temple, or a lot of times worship will just occur at home at something called a shrine. So you'll see this picture right here. This is an example of a shrine, a very ornate temple in India, but it does not have to look like this to be considered a place of worship. Again, these are all things that you're going to want to put in that chart. There were many sacred writings for Hinduism. You have the Vedas, which are the oldest Hindu text, the Upanishads, which describes the Hindu belief of uniting with Brahman, which we'll talk about. And then there's also epic stories like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. So the thing about Hinduism is there's a lot of debate. Is this religion polytheistic? So do people following this religion believe in more than one God, or do they believe in just one God? And there's really no black and white answer for you on that. Hindus believe in many gods and goddesses. However, each god and goddess is really just an aspect of one universal spirit, Brahman. So yes, there's gods and goddesses, but at the same time, there's just that one spirit. So again, people go back and forth. So Hindus believe that it's difficult for humans to understand a concept so vast as Brahman. So they worship its many aspects in the form of many different gods and goddesses. So almost like different personalities of Brahman, just because that idea of that spirit is so big that Hindus believe the human mind just can't possibly wrap itself around that idea. These are some of the major gods. You've got Brahma, known as the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and then Shiva, the destroyer. So a very unique belief that Hindus have is something called reincarnation. Many of you were aware of what this word meant before we've learned about this. You answered it on the pretest that we took many, many weeks ago. But what reincarnation means, it's the belief that when you die, you have a soul which will be reborn into a new body. So reincarnation is actually that rebirth of a soul into a new body. Hindus also believe in something called samsara. Samsara is the cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation, which is that rebirth of a soul. So reincarnation is the rebirth portion of the entire cycle, which is samsara. Hindus believe in something called karma, and karma is a word that I know we've used in class. Karma really is the consequences of a person's good or bad actions. Hindus will believe that people who do bad things will be punished, and even possibly reincarnated as a lesser form. People who do good things may be reincarnated into a higher form or have a better life in the next life. Another Hindu belief, a word that should look familiar from when we learned about the caste system before spring break, is something called dharma. So the belief that people are born with duties to their family, to their caste, to their community. Remember that caste is that system of social classes. And Hindus believe it's really important to fulfill your role, to fulfill your dharma, no matter how lowly in society you might have been if you're talking about ancient times. So from here, what you're going to do when you work your way through the slideshow, you're going to watch just a quick video clip that's going to review that caste system. But then moving on, the caste was a social class that one was born into, and it cannot be changed. If you recall, you had your people at the very bottom, your untouchables, which even to this day, where the caste system, a lot of has been outlawed, you still see people that are not being treated very well. And then at your very highest, you had your Brahmins, which were your priests and your leaders. But a caste in the past was a social class that you were born into and you couldn't change. And the whole idea is that good people could be reincarnated into a higher caste after death. So let's say you were a Shudra, you were toward the bottom. You were the unskilled workers who worked really, really hard, could never do any better for yourself in your life. You would have believed in ancient times that if you lived a very good life, you did great things, you had good karma, you did all your job, you did your dharma, that potentially in your next life, you could be reincarnated into a higher caste, maybe into a Vishya or something like that. The caste, again, in ancient times especially, determined who you could talk to, be friends with, or marry. It would determine where a person could live and the education and job that you could have gotten. So untouchability and discrimination based on the caste was prohibited in India since 1949. However, like you saw in the video before break, it still plays a part in the way people interact with each other, unfortunately. Today, for many, the role of caste is changing within the Hindu religion. So there's not so much of an emphasis on it. So another Hindu teaching is something called moksha. Moksha is the goal of a Hindu. So eventually a Hindu is going to want to escape samsara, escape that cycle and stop being reincarnated. They're going to want their soul to stop being reincarnated into a new body and become one with that universal spirit, with that Brahman. Moksha is that uniting with Brahman. So it's the end goal after many, many lifetimes that a Hindu would believe you could reach. So to escape the cycle, to escape reincarnation, a Hindu believes that you need to perform good deeds to work toward good karma, perform your duties, meaning your dharma, to be reincarnated into a higher form for each new life. And then after many lifetimes, a person may leave the cycle of reincarnation to become one with Brahman, so they could reach moksha. Like with religions that we talked about before break, there are many important holidays. Holi is one that's very well known. It's a spring celebration, which is marked by people throwing colored powder and colored water on each other. There's the Festival of Lights known as Diwali, where small oil lamps are lit to symbolize the triumph of good over evil. Excuse me. Hindus will pray for wealth, prosperity, friendship. You're going to notice this graphic on the bottom of your chart. Make sure you take a look at it. It goes over again that cycle in the terms of dharma, karma, and moksha. Some other information about Hindus. As part of their faith, they may perform puja. Puja are acts of worship at a shrine in their home or in a temple. Many Hindus meditate. So they sit quietly to clear their mind from distractions. And it's also quite common for many to perform yoga, although you can do yoga and not be Hindu. But this is just a series of exercises designed to help a person discipline their body and mind. There are many different groups of Hindus that may focus on a certain deity, meaning a god or goddess. So from here, you can go ahead, take some time to read more about Hindu worship in the home. It's just a short reading, no questions you have to answer, anything like that. But this would be the point where once you've worked your way through the slideshow, through that chart, answering the question on the chart, you're going to now go to a quizzes. So when you get into the quizzes, I want to remind you that you have to use your real name. Okay. Do not, I'm going to hit start over because I had practiced it. You need to use your real name. Do not make up a name. Do not do anything like that. Use your real name. You're going to complete this quizzes. I would like to see you end up with a 75%. So I need you just retaking this quiz until you get your highest grade that you can get. And just in taking this quizzes, you will get your points in Power School for participation. There's additional reading that you can go to learn more about Hinduism. And I'm going to stop this first video here.